Hi, it's the Bible Forum. It's April 8th, 2018. I want to talk to you about our census. The United States Census is coming up. This is 2018, 2020. Every 10 years, we have this major event. Apparently, they have other censuses along the way. What we're doing in the census coming up in a year or so is the same thing we've done in the past. We're arguing. We're debating what questions will be asked. We're discussing whether we should be required to answer them. I'm of the old school. I answer the basic questions of who, where, how old, and I leave the other 6 pages empty. Only one time have I had anyone return to my home asking for more data. Data I refused to give them. And they left. And I didn't go to jail. Of course, they probably, I moved since then. But it may be, and is likely to be, that all this is going to change. Perhaps this time. Maybe the next time. But I don't know about now. I don't know how it's all going to work until I see it. We've got 2 more years. The Trump administration recently announced that it will add a question to the 2020 census asking respondents about their citizenship status. Now, I believe this question is in the same category as who, where, and how old. It's basic to our system. Representation, financial allegations, and so forth. But some of them are balking. They're claiming it's unconstitutional to ask. And what's interesting here is that those asking the question are the anti-constitutional bunch. Those who want to tear America from her roots and set her adrift on the secular globalist river. A river that is moving swiftly toward the waterfall. Now, none of us pay a whole lot of attention to census questions until it's time they begin asking of us. This time around, we're being told the question will be essentially identical to the question already asked in the American Community Survey and the Current Population Survey, 2 large samples of the American population. It asks respondents if they're citizens, and if so, whether they are native-born or naturalized. The history of this question demonstrates that it is not new. There was no problem when we asked about it in other times. Why would it be illegal now? Well, there's a context, isn't there? The first time the census asked about citizen status was in 1820, which is exactly before the census even introduced individual level questions about age and gender. Before 1850, all questions focused on the head of the household, with other household members usually not named. The 1820 question asked about foreigners, not naturalized non-citizens. But the question was dropped in 1830 and 1840. In 1850, there was no citizenship question, but a place of birth question. Where were you born? That format was repeated in 1860. In 1870, the census asked a citizenship question. All emancipated slaves were counted as naturalized citizens, as the 14th Amendment had extended to them citizenship. Now, clearly, estimating the effects of abolishing slavery was the key purpose of the 1870 census question about citizenship. But it was dropped in 1880. In 1900, we got our modern citizenship question. Anyone born in the United States was counted as a native-born citizen, including emancipated former slaves, while people not born in the United States but naturalized were naturalized citizens, and everybody else were non-citizens. We had the categories. And that question persisted until 1950. The 1960 census became concerned with the length of the census. The form was very long, hard to administer, including questions about migration, income, education, race, sex, age, housing, citizenship, birthplace, fertility, mortality risk, disability, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Getting everybody to respond to this incredibly long document was almost impossible. So the 1960 census merged the formerly separate census of population and census of housing into one form. This format has persisted through 1970. These things don't last long. In 1980, the limitation of the new format was becoming clear, so there would be two different census forms. Most people, about 80-90%, would get the short form, which only asked very basic questions: age, sex, race, household structure, housing, tenure, and so forth. And 10 to 20% of the population would get the long form, which would ask more detailed questions about citizenship. So in 1980, 1990, and 2000, the census long form asked about citizenship. But after 2000, the long form was dropped. It may have been that there were many people like me. I'm not doing it. Since then, the Census Bureau added a new annual survey. This survey looks at 2 to 4% of the population every year based on an exhaustive set of questions. The point here is that having a citizenship question on the census is not a new thing. We skipped asking that in 2010, but we're back to it again. And citizenship is a normal thing to include in a major government survey. Hence why virtually all major government surveys include a question about citizenship. So we ask the question, what's the problem? You know, don't you?